Do you think that?
Oh, well, I feel good.
How do you feel about what you've seen over the years? Have you noticed a big change in how the
Oh,
world
yes.
is run?
Yes.
Would you rather be in the older times or the
Yeah,
present?
I don't think I could function in this time. If I were a young person, I guess I could, but I'm glad that I came along when I did.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're glad you did too.
God always knows best.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about the racism that goes on in the world? Have you experienced it firsthand?
Oh, not really. I can't say that I really have.
Do you feel
I've heard a lot of things, but I never had anyone to bother me. We lived in Collinwood for years, and no one ever bothered us. And the blacks lived around up there with the Italians and anybody, the white people that were up there. But then, in those days, see, your parents taught you how to act and how to treat your neighbors. You don't run all over your neighbor's yard and meddle and all those things. See, we were taught that. And my mother used to say that every morning when my children left to go to school when they were growing up.
she was giving them instructions not
Giving
to
them instructions. Don't run on the people's yard. See, at the lower end of things where we lived was all white. And then from down up was black. And she would tell them each morning, you don't run on people's grass. You mind your own business. And when you get around there where that fruit stand is, don't touch anything that don't belong to you.
Oh, that was good.
And she meant that. See, and we knew she meant it. And my kids didn't do that. They'd go to school like they were supposed to, and they would come home. So I can't say that I had any real trouble.
Well, you've been through a lot of different conflicts in the world.
Yes.
Probably starting with the
Because
First World War.
John's, oh, excuse me,
Did you start with the First World War? Were you around then?
First World War. I was 13 years old. I can remember that. And my mother, we lived on 11th Street in Louisville, Kentucky. And then women's made shirts for the soldiers to wear. And I can remember that very clearly.
Did you help make those shirts?
Yes. My mother would have me sewing on buttons and cutting threads and doing a lot of little different stuff, you know.
Was that volunteer work for everyone?
No, they paid you for it.
Paid you to do it?
They paid her for it.
Did you have anyone in your family that went away to war?
No, I can't say that I did.
And then the next war was World War II. Do you remember that one?
I guess I do. But about the Depression, I never had any trouble. My father always worked for the railroad, and he always brought home a paycheck. So we were never without food or anything.
That's good. So you had a pretty quiet life in terms of some of the major conflicts that affected other people.
Yeah. I meant to tell you this about John's dad.
Mm-hmm.
We used to go, his home was in South Carolina, Sumter, South Carolina. And his people lived down there. And in the summertime, I would take the children and go down there to visit because he wanted to see his mother was living then. And I can't remember the date on this. Let's see, I think it was around about, I know it was in June 1942. That's when it was. We went down there to visit his parents. And on the way back, we were driving, he was driving, and he said to me, he said, you know, I don't feel good. I said, you don't? And he said, no. He said, I must be going to die or something, just like that. And, of course, I kidded. You know, I said, well, that'll be good, then I'll be rid of you. But I was only joking.
Oh, no.
I was only joking. So when we got to, before we got to Cincinnati, a storm came up. And we stopped because it was, you know, thunder and lightning. And then John, he was telling his daddy, don't stop under the tree, Daddy. We'll get hit by lightning. So when the storm quieted down, we started out. We left Cincinnati and started for Cleveland. And we went around a curve, and all at once he slammed on the brakes, you know, like that. And I said, what's the matter? He said, I'm sick. So he got out of the car, Faye and Ronald, and we led him around to the back of the car. Then the car had bumpers on the back. And he sat on that bumper. And then he fell out.
On the ground?
Yeah. But the kids dragged him in the back of the car so nothing would run over him, you know. And I took John by the hand, ran down the highway to get some soda and water. I thought he had indigestion. I didn't know anything about a heart attack. And so the lady gave it to me, and I ran back. But when I got back, his eyes were set, and they were blue, like. And just as the Lord would have it, because I couldn't drive. This white fella and his brother drove up on a gravel truck. And he got off. He said, lady, what's the matter? I said, my husband is sick. And he went around and looked at him. He said, well, I'll help him. I said, okay. And him and his brother got Johnny up, sit him in the car, and he got in the car. I said, well, how far is the nearest doctor? He said, 4 miles. Well, Johnny was dead then, but I didn't believe it, you know. Because when he put him in the car, he didn't sit up. He kept going over like this. And I told Faye, I said, Faye, hold him back. She was sitting behind. I said, just, you know, hold him back so he won't slump over. And she did, but when we got to the doctor, he was dead.
That's horrible, because you weren't expecting any type of
No,
problem on the
I
way
wasn't,
home.
but I'll never forget that man. He was so nice. And he said, where do you live? I said, Cleveland, Ohio. He said, well, let me go home and tell my wife, and I'll drive you home.
That was nice.
Now, but I wouldn't dare do that now.
Right.
But you see, back then, he was a nice person. And he went home, ate his supper, and I told his wife where he was going, I guess. Now, in the meantime, the doctor sent him to an undertaker there in this little town. And then, because he passed us on the road.
Okay.
And then he drove us on to Cleveland.
So the undertaker drove your husband to Cleveland?
No, not the undertaker drove my husband's body to Cleveland.
Okay.
But Ed Smith, that was his name.
He
Brought
drove you
me and the kids on home.
in your car?
Yeah.
And then he rode back with the undertaker?
Right, right.
And what kind of effect did that have on your life?
Well,
Losing your last husband that way?
well, I just, you know, it's one of those things. I was just took it in stride the best I could.
Did you decide at that point you weren't going to get married anymore?
Well, I decided at that point that was enough.
Did you ever have anybody else that you dated?
No.
That was it.
Just give it up.
Well, it seems like you did the right thing. You got a lot of healthy, happy grandkids out
Yeah.
of it. So he died in 1947.
No, he died in 1942.
42.